Hey guys, it is Damira here. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. In last week's video, I posted the first part of our weekend in Baltimore, and we attended the Vegan Soul Fest. It was definitely so much fun, but then we did some other things for the rest of our weekend. So that's what you'll be seeing in today's video. Again, welcome or welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me for another video. This is Life with DW, the Millennial Farmhouse. So on Saturday of our weekend in Baltimore, we attended the Vegan Soul Fest, and it was a great festival, but we decided to do something a little different on Sunday instead of attending the second day of the festival. Now, I had researched a little bit about what was in Baltimore before we got there, and I really wanted to visit the 7-foot Knoll lighthouse. I just have a fascination with lighthouses. I think they're very cool and very important pieces of history and very important, elements even today. And so I got up Sunday morning and took a stroll with my mother and my grandparents over to this lighthouse. Before it opened, we spent some time gazing out at the harbor and just taking in the views and the serenity of where we were and what that moment really held for us. This was just a great time to take a break and to just go out and enjoy something that we don't often get to see or do. So again, I really wanted to go see this lighthouse, and once it opened, we were on our way up to the top to see what was inside. So we got to go inside the lighthouse, and it was actually really interesting to me. So from the outside, it looks really huge, but once you get inside, it actually felt pretty small and pretty cozy, which I thought was interesting. We got to see some relics and some artifacts, and on the walls there were plaques with a lot of the history of not only this lighthouse, but just lighthouses in general. And I thought that seeing this bell from the Danville was really cool. There was a room with a large map showing spots where there were lighthouses along the coast. And then we got to see this lighthouse keeper's oath. This card is just blown up, but I thought that was really interesting that they actually had to take an oath to carry out their duties. And then we went up to the second part of the lighthouse, and we saw the ladder where the lighthouse keepers actually had to climb up to an even smaller space to keep watch. And I just am so glad we got to go and visit. I mean, history can be really interesting, and so I've always wanted to go inside of a lighthouse, and that's what we got to do. And then afterwards, we just walked around along the deck and took in the views. So this was a great way for us to start our morning. And then what you'll be seeing pretty soon is that we went and checked out one of the historic ships before having a nice family lunch, and then we were all on our way. After visiting the lighthouse, we went over to one of the Coast Guard ships, and this was the USS Taney. This was a huge ship. Now, I know ships look huge on the outside, and then when you first step in and see the halls, they're so small and they feel very crowded and claustrophobic. But it really is just so big inside of the ship. One of the first spaces we saw was actually the medical quarters, and I have to say that I could not imagine serving on a ship and being in need of some medical attention and having to come to this very small space for that attention. It just blew my mind. But again, even though everything looked so small and so crowded, the ship itself was really just huge, and there was so much inside of this ship. It really just was so surprising. Here I am just walking around the ward room, and I thought that this was an interesting room because you can just imagine when plans were drawn up and then they had to be discussed and strategies were created. It took place in this room, and so I thought that that was something really interesting to be able to see. And then after walking around the room, we got to actually turn the gears on one of the doors. And when you turn the wheel, the gears have to match up to be able to open or close and lock that door. And you could actually feel the weight. It wasn't hard to do, but you can just imagine when they were in a rush and they really needed to seal those doors, you know, how much force they had to put behind it. And so I thought all of that was interesting. And a really fun fact about the historic ships in Baltimore is that they're actually used as learning opportunities. And so students can come in and actually have class on these ships where they get to learn about the history and what went on. And I thought that that was also just pretty cool. So I'm just showing a few features of what I thought were really cool, but we did get to see a whole lot on this ship, and it actually took us a while to go through this tour. But here you can see that they had separate quarters for officers and I guess you could say upper level servicemen. They had little cabins where there were beds and couches and desks, and then their cabinets and wardrobes and stuff. And they even had their own separate dining quarters. And so this was for just different officers and captains and whatnot. And then here you'll see there was actually a mess hall for the rest of the crewmen. And in this mess hall, it was very large. There was even a large kitchen over in the corner that we got to see. And then right after that, behind this area, there was the bunk room. And I have to tell you, that bunk room really surprised me. There were so many bunks, first of all, and that makes sense, obviously, because you have a lot of crewmen and they need somewhere to sleep. But it was really interesting to see just how small those bunks were. I mean, just imagine the only thing they could really do was slide in and out of their bunks. You know, they couldn't sit on their beds to rest, for a second or two. They really only had enough space to slide in and out, so that was interesting. And then their lockers were just right next to their beds. So we saw all of that, and I just think that this was a really interesting trip, and I'm glad we got to go onto one of the ships. It's an important piece of history, and so again, it was just really interesting to see. After a fun-filled morning, we went to Miss Shirley's for brunch. It was a very beautiful restaurant, and the decor was nice. The vibes were amazing, and the staff were so friendly and so helpful. So I started with an iced coffee, which was much needed and very much appreciated. The iced coffee was good, and it was very refreshing and just what I needed in that moment. I actually thought it was really cute that for syrups and things like that, they gave us those tiny little cream pours, and those really just helped with the vibes of the restaurant. You could tell that they really took care of the details at that restaurant. So we were seated in an area that wasn't quite outside, but it had an outside feel. It wasn't the main part of the restaurant, but it was, a screened area with a ton of windows. And we had a rather large party. They do let people know that they can't accommodate large parties. However, they were able to get us 2 tables side by side, and so we very much appreciated that as well. For brunch, we all pretty much got breakfast items, but there were a few other things, crab cakes, salmon, and for anyone who was maybe vegan or had a special diet, they did have some options for those people as well. And then you can see here, I actually got the special, which was peach pancakes with a browned sugar crumble, and it was delicious, you guys. It was peaches, brown sugar, oats. It was so good. I was so glad that I got it. It was like a little taste of summer. Seriously, so good. And even the baby was trying to eat some of his mom's food. She'd give him a little bit of cream and everything, but you could tell he really wanted that food.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, baby. Happy birthday to you.
Go ahead, harder. Blow it.
We had a really great time at Miss Shirley's. Again, the food was delicious, and I highly recommend if you're going out to eat in Baltimore. And then after our brunch, we made our way home and really just took that time to relax and think about the wonderful weekend we had. Again, we went to the Vegan Soul Fest, and that was our purpose for going to Maryland. But then we also spent time doing other things. For me, I got to visit a lighthouse and a historic ship. I did a lot of walking around the harbor, and there were a lot of just relaxing and grateful moments. And then, of course, as we made our way home, it was, a little sad to leave vacation. But again, it was a much appreciated and grateful weekend. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you liked part 1. If you didn't see it, go ahead and watch that. It'll be linked below. And then this is part 2 of our Baltimore weekend. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. I do hope you'll consider subscribing. And this is Life with DW, the Millennial Farmhouse. Bye, guys.